Welcome. Today we will analyze this painting, The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci. It is one of the most recognizable pieces of art in history, and I'm sure you have at least heard of it. This painting is not housed in any of the great art galleries or museums. It was painted on the wall of the dining room of the Dominican convent of Santa Maria del Grazie, in Milan. It depicts a scene described in the Gospel of John, specifically the dramatic moment after Jesus announces that one of his apostles will betray him. Spoiler, the traitor in question is Judas. In the story, Jesus gathered his disciples together to eat the evening before he was betrayed. As they ate and drank, Christ gave them explicit instructions on how to eat and drink in the future, in remembrance of him. It was the first celebration of the Eucharist. And then, he dropped the bombshell that one disciple would betray him before sunrise. We can see all the different reactions, with different degrees of horror, anger, and shock. Leonardo da Vinci organizes the 12 apostles in groups of 3. The first group represents Bartholomew, James the Lesser, and Andrew. They are all surprised to hear the announcement. Judas Iscariot, Peter, and John form another group of 3. Peter holds a knife that he will later use to sever the ear of a soldier attempting to arrest Jesus. He is touching John's shoulder, who appears to swoon. Judas is gripping the purse that contains his reward for identifying Jesus. He is the only person to have his elbow on the table, and his head is also vertically the lowest of anyone in the painting. He also knocks over a salt pot, which is a symbol of a bad omen. Jesus' serene composure, with his head and eyes lowered, contrasts with the agitation of the apostles. Leonardo da Vinci chose not to paint the customary halo around Jesus' head. This is probably because Leonardo believed in nature, not in God. To him, nature is God, so he treated every character in the fresco as common people. On Jesus' left we have the next group of 3, formed by Thomas, James the Greater, and Philip. Thomas is clearly upset. The raised index finger foreshadows his incredulity of the resurrection. James the Greater looks stunned, with his arms in the air. Meanwhile, Philip appears to be requesting some explanation. Matthew, Jude Thaddeus, and Simon the Zealot are the final group of 3. They seem to be discussing who the traitor could be. Leonardo da Vinci was well known for his love of symmetry. He represented the space by using linear perspective, a technique that employs parallel lines converging at a single vanishing point. He placed the vanishing point at Jesus' right temple, to draw the viewer's attention toward the main subject. This perspective also seems to invite the viewer to step right into the dramatic scene. At the back of the room there are 3 windows that look out on an undulating landscape, perhaps Milan's countryside. The scene seems simple and organized, but at the same time we can feel the movement and emotion that goes around the table, which is far too large to fit in this room. Yet, it is not large enough to seat the 13 men. Not many people know that The Last Supper is a failed experiment. Leonardo hadn't worked on such a large painting and had no experience in the standard mural medium of fresco. The painting was made using experimental pigments directly on the dry plaster wall, and it has not stood the test of time well. The paint did not adhere properly and began to flake away only a few decades after the work was finished. Today we are probably looking at very little of the original, and it remains very fragile. If you are lucky enough to see it in real life, you are only allowed 15 minutes to admire it, so make sure you make the most of it. This painting is just one of many examples of Leonardo da Vinci's incredible talent. In this composition he bridged the gap between artistic aesthetics, mathematics, and geometry, creating what is perhaps the most remarkable masterpiece in the history of Christian art. So, what do you think about this painting? Write a comment below, and subscribe to the channel.